Hi, everybody.
Welcome to our power lunch.
We are back. It was a long weekend.
We were at Expand this weekend.
I was partially at Expand this
I was at
weekend.
Expand all weekend,
Yeah, we had
running
a
around like a crazy person.
we had a big weekend this weekend, so we're a little bit tired right now. But we said that we were restarting these power lunches, and we didn't want to let anybody down. So we're here. Uh, like Jeff said, Expand was this weekend. So it's the big Wealth Genius members only conference that they do twice a year. It is a very big ordeal. It's very exciting, lots of energy, lots of connections, lots of people, lots of stuff going on. And Jeff took my normal role actually at Expand.
Yeah, I was the stage manager. I was making sure that all the speakers were ready to go, where they needed to be, when they needed to be there, making sure they had their mic and that everything was good.
Yeah, made sure the day ran smoothly. So it's a big role, I know, because I've done it a couple of times, and I know it's very exhausting. So big weekend. I was actually in a skating competition this weekend, so that's why I was in at Expand. I made it for the last like 2 hours of the conference, and then the meetup afterwards. So I came for the end party, is what I went for. But big weekend for both of us. Lots, I think, to.
How'd you do at your skating?
We came second. Yeah, we
Coda,
did. We had a decent skate. I think it was a good skate for our first competition. We got some of the competition jitters out, and I think we're ready to do our nationals qualifier in a month, so that'll be good. But yeah, it was a big weekend. We had lots going on. It was very busy, and I know Expand Weekend is always it's wild. Like that conference is
the lead up to it is
wild.
crazy. The weekend itself is crazy. I'm seeing so much on Facebook still being posted now about Expand. I think you mentioned when you were at your skating competition that anytime you went on Facebook, all you saw was people talking about Expand, posting pictures about what's going on.
Yeah, it was my full feed. I had serious FOMO when I was at my skating competition, but I had to focus. So I tried not to pay attention to it. But yeah, it's gotten huge. We've seen that conference go from like 100
50 people. I think the first one was less than 100. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you're probably right, because Wealth Genius has grown so much in the last 2 years since we joined that we've seen it go from, a small room with 50, just under 100 people, somewhere in that range, to
over 500.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was like a massive room, big ballroom, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, a ton of vendors. Like the event itself has expanded with its name appropriately. It has expanded significantly, and it's really an incredible.
It's only growing from here.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
every year is going to be bigger and bigger. Actually, twice a year. So the next one in June will be even more people.
Yeah. So if you're seeing it all over your feed, that's why it happened this weekend.
If you have FOMO, reach out to us. We can help you get into the next one.
Yeah. Because it's going to be even bigger, even better. So, but that's
not why we're here today.
No. With that said, and our topic today is actually something that I spoke to one of my good friends, Deanna, at the conference this weekend about. So it's an interesting topic. I think it's a really important topic, and one that isn't always the most comfortable thing to do. I think a lot of people they get uncomfortable thinking about doing it, but it can be really, really important, and it can actually save you in a lot of ways. So we're going to be talking about walking away from a deal today.
People don't like to do it.
Nope.
But it's important.
Super important.
Yeah. We'll talk about reasons on why.
Yeah. But before we dive too deep into it, if you are new to this Power Lunch today, welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. It's good to see you. We try to make these as interactive as possible. We have like a very rough list of some things that we want to touch on, but otherwise, it's interactive. So if you have something that you want to contribute, if you have a question, even something that maybe you want to talk through with us. I'm not going to say we have all the answers, but if there's something that you want to try to talk through with us and anybody else that's on the call, put it in the chat.
Yeah,
We'll
even
see
if
what
we don't
can
have the
do.
answer, somebody else in the chat might, right? So
Yeah.
put your question out there, and we'll do our best.
Yeah. We do these lives every Tuesday at 12:30 Eastern here on Facebook, and then it's also on YouTube. If you miss one week, they're all posted on our YouTube. So if you're new and you want to go back and watch some of the previous lives we done, uh, we go to our YouTube, Pinnacle Investments, and check out the videos there. You can also give us a little follow or subscribe on there if you want to do that.
Make sure you do. You'll be notified whenever we go live in the future.
But yeah, you can go back and watch all the ones that we've been doing. It's almost, I think it's been a year. Has it been a year?
I don't think so.
No?
Has it? No.
Almost like 3/4 of a year?
Maybe.
We're getting close.
We'll have to see when we first started doing these.
But there's a lot of them, so you can go back and take a look at them.
Yeah, they're all up there. We've recorded every single one of them. So
yeah. Okay. That's our spiel. So walking away from a deal.
Yeah. Where do we start? Why would you walk away from a deal? Why would you want to?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
I think there are a couple of different reasons that you would walk away from the deal. Sometimes it's more positive, sometimes it's not quite as positive and can be very, very stressful. Maybe we can start with some of the ones that we've walked away from.
Yeah.
So I'd say probably the most recent one that we've walked away from was really the numbers weren't making sense. And we were going back to the seller and having conversations with them, and we just couldn't come to like an agreement on what was going to work for both parties. So we had said, you know what, they wanted to go potentially to market. So we said, okay, go to market. As a fellow investor, I hope you get your number. That would obviously be amazing for you, because as an investor, I would love to get the number that I want. But if it doesn't work out for you, we're still here. We're still interested.
We do our underwriting, and we need to understand. We need to make sure that the numbers work, right?
Yeah.
As investors, we need to make sure the numbers work. You obviously, as a seller, want to get your highest price possible for the sale. So
yeah. So that was, I think, a relatively positive walking away from a deal. We weren't too far into it. We just had underwritten numbers. It was under contract, but we didn't get too far into the deal itself. Mm-hmm. And this
was pre-market too. It didn't hit the market. This was something, I think it was like a pocket listing essentially, that we were brought into. And
yeah. So in the end, I'd say that's one of the more positive. I don't know if we had really any negative, like super negative properties we've walked away from, but overall it was pretty good. It'll be nice if it does come back. And when you walk away from a property that way, leave the door open.
That's the thing. And that's why I think any of the ones that we've had have been kind of a positive walk away, because we're leaving the door open. So if the price, if you're able to kind of come out with a creative solution after some time in the market or something like that, then we want to be able to go back to them and there not be any, bad blood or any reasons to not move forward with the deal at that point.
Yeah. And you want to let them know, right? Like I said, we are also investors. We would also want to get top dollar for our properties. So, if you get it, that's great. Like, we're super happy for you. There's nothing, we're not upset because we couldn't give you the number.
We can't meet eye to eye right now.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Yeah. So we're not upset about it. Obviously we wish you the best, but if you're not getting your number, we are still interested. We are still willing and want to be your buyer. But you kind of know where we stand, and that's that. So you kind of just leave the door open. We've seen deals come back. We've had a lot of fellow investors where deals have come back and they did end up being the buyer that closed on the deal with that seller. So they let it go, gave the try on the market to see if anybody else would end up snagging it. It didn't happen. And then that seller ended up coming back. So it does work. And I think it's not like I don't know, it's not like you're trying to trick the seller into like coming back or anything. It's
No,
what's going to work for both
like
parties.
in this case, especially, we're giving them a chance to see what the market says, right? We don't want to necessarily we tell them what we think that it's worth and what we're able to buy it for.
Yeah. I
Um,
think
but
that's key. Like what we're able to buy it for, I think is key.
Yeah.
Like what's going to work for us, what's going to work for our portfolio.
That's right.
You know, some people have different not different systems set up, but maybe they already have a ton of properties in that area, and there's going to be an expense that's less expensive for them because they have something in bulk already. So maybe it makes more sense for them to pick it up at a different price, but it has to be what makes sense for you at that time with your portfolio. Hi, Brenda. Good to see you.
Welcome in. Yeah.
So leave the door open.
Yep.
Try not to, offend anybody.
As much as you can as well, put your cards on the table and be honest in where you stand with it. Because when you let it go, it needs to make sense on why you're letting it go, especially if you're leaving that door open.
Yeah.
Like, these are our numbers. This is where we're able to kind of play the game. If you can't meet eye to eye, yeah, we have to let it go, but we're still here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always say we're still here. We're just not there.
I've never heard you say that before.
You haven't heard that?
No.
I've said that for like the last year.
Oh, that's funny.
Every time we walk away from a deal, I say that.
I really like that.
You
put that on a t-shirt. Jeff needs to make a t-shirt line of his one-liners. We need to keep track of these.
We're still here.
Who's on this call right now
there.
keeping track of Jeff's one-liners? We'll make a t-shirt line one day. But yeah, no.
I think Sam and Connor have us covered.
Yeah, if you're here, Connor, write that one down. But yeah, it's a matter of like, you never really want to offend anybody because the investing world is so small to begin with. So yeah, keep those doors open. If the deal doesn't work for you right now, that's okay. I think that kind of bridges into another really important thing to remember at all times. And we talk about it often as investors, but it can be very tough to remember once you get into a deal, is to have no emotions. Everything has to make sense as far as numbers go. And it's a lot easier when you're just underwriting the deal up front. You don't have it under contract. Maybe you're working on what you can offer at that point. It's a little bit easier to keep those emotions out. Mm-hmm. It's a lot harder the further you get into a deal.
Yeah. Because
now you've been working on this deal for potentially a long time. Like,
you're into it, you've committed time to it, you've committed potentially finances to it if you've done any of your due diligence that costs money. Yeah.
And this is where it could potentially get more into, a less, in the end, it's probably always going to be positive, but something that feels less positive when you're walking away is when you're further into the deal. So this one, thankfully, we weren't very far into it. We were just in the initial kind of due diligence phase, just underwriting with some extra finances that we had received. And, we hadn't spent a ton of time on the deal. So that was a pretty easy, we hadn't built up a ton of emotion for that property. It was an easy one to step away from. But it gets harder the longer you've been in that deal.
Yeah. It's best it's really hard to control emotions, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going to get emotional about the deal. Don't get emotional about the building. Don't get emotional about this specific asset. Get emotional about the deal. If it's a good deal, love that deal. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But if the deal is not good.
If it's not a deal.
If it's not a good deal, then you can't love it. Sorry, somebody's at our door.
Do you want to go get it?
Yeah, I'll go get it.
I'll keep talking.
Keep entertaining.
Yeah. And it is really hard to keep those emotions in check. And it might even be like, run it by somebody else. If the numbers aren't really making sense to you, but you feel like maybe you are getting a little bit emotional about it, maybe have somebody run through the numbers for you. Have hopefully maybe you have a mentor, which obviously that's the most ideal situation. Bring it to them and then have them look at it, and then have someone from the outside look at the deal itself and maybe give you some advice on what they think. And if they're like, maybe you are too emotionally attached to this, you might need to step away. So it's nice having we're just talking about having like an outside eye
Mm-hmm.
look at the deal, so
Mm-hmm.
that if you are that emotionally invested in the deal, hopefully that can help you kind of relieve that, because that's where people get into trouble often, is when they have that emotional attachment to a deal. And I've seen it happen quite a bit. I've seen people get in trouble because of it. I've seen it a lot when they've also put finances, like they've spent money on the
Now
deal.
you're invested in this.
Yeah. So not only have they spent a lot of time on the deal, if you're like, especially if you're doing multifamily, due diligence can get expensive because you have inspections, you have your environmental, you have your
And
appraisal.
the bigger the deal, the more these expenses typically cost as well.
Yeah, exactly. So if you've put money into the deal, it can be even harder to walk away, especially if maybe especially if I feel like if you're kind of newer, if it's one of your first multifamily and
Mm-hmm.
you've put that money in, you feel like you have to move forward with it
Now
because
you're
you've put
committed.
the
Now you
money.
have to. Yeah.
Yeah. So it can
But
be
that's a very dangerous situation to be in.
exactly, because it's better to walk away. So say, you've spent 5 to 10 grand so far in your due diligence, and something comes up, it doesn't make sense for you anymore. You have to be able to stomach that 10K loss, because if you don't and you end up moving forward with it, that you could have had a 10K loss and saved yourself, or you've gotten yourself into a deal that's now a money pit and you're shoveling tens of potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars into this deal to try to make it make sense.
Yeah.
And now you got yourself into a really sticky situation where it would have actually been cheaper to just cut your losses at the 10K and walked away.
Yeah. Alfonso always says sometimes the best deals are the ones you didn't do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's true. And I've seen this happen before with investors, that I've had that conversation with them. Like, maybe you do need to walk away from this. I know you're emotionally invested. I know you're financially invested. But if you move forward and you continue with this deal, you're going to be in a lot bigger trouble in the future, potentially, right? I mean, you can't always predict if that's actually how it's going to go. Maybe it will work out, but you're almost getting into that like gambling.
Yeah, at that point
situation.
it's not a sophisticated investor move. At that point, you're just doing it to do it and hoping for the best. You're smoking the hopium.
Yeah, don't smoke that hopium. So I think that's probably one of the more kind of negative situations that you'd be walking away. Obviously, in the end, it's a positive. It doesn't feel good when you're doing it.
Yeah. Now, you can still come back to a deal if you walk away from it and you're invested in it, but typically you'd be walking away because you've exhausted all of your efforts in trying to get a price reduction or in trying to be creative with the financing or what have you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes you'll get to the end of it and before you remove your financing condition, you've done all your other due diligence, but now all of a sudden interest rates have changed or your lender pulls back and says, you know what, we can't give you the loan to value that you're looking for, so you're going to have to come out with more money out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not able to do that, some people have to walk away from it.
Yeah.
But it's also not to say that you can't go back to that eventually.
Or at that point, you try to go back to the seller and say, look, this isn't going to work for us anymore. What can we do to kind of meet in the middle?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how do we make this work so that we can move forward with closing and not have the deal fall apart,
Mm-hmm.
give you what you want. You're going to end up selling your building in the end, and allow us to still make it through closing.
Yeah.
So,
because at the end of the day, the seller also wants to sell that asset.
mm-hmm.
They don't want the deal to fall apart at any point. They don't want the deal to fall apart at the end. They don't want it to fall apart at the beginning. As soon as that's under contract and you have an agreed upon price, the seller at this point has already started spending that money, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they're going to be making money on this deal, they've already started spending it. So keep that in mind as well, that you don't want to just necessarily walk away right away, but you want to make sure that that you're able to negotiate.
Yeah.
And you've exhausted those efforts. Now you can walk away.
Yeah, exactly. And even, well, I guess before we get into that piece of it, we like to make sure that everything is as tied up as we can possibly make it before we ever waive conditions. And this is also really important because obviously it's a lot easier to walk away from a deal when you are conditional. Because once you've gone firm, you can get yourself into a lot more hot water if you do have to walk away. So this is also why it's really important to have an appropriate, especially if you're into the larger multifamily. If you're doing a duplex or triplex, you can't, like, the conditional period just can't be as long. But when you're getting into commercial properties, you have a bit longer with your due diligence because there is more to do. But making sure that you get that due diligence done, making sure you have all your ducks in a row, making sure that, everything is kind of squared away once you waive your conditions, because now you're kind of, the feeling is that you're stuck in the deal, I guess, at that point. But I do want to address that in a second. But it's really important that if you're going to be doing your due diligence, which you should be, if you're going to be working with partners, making sure that's all like figured out, that everybody knows what they're doing in the deal and there's not going to be anything bad that happens afterwards or misunderstandings after your conditions are waived and the deal falls apart because of partnerships. You just want to make sure that everything is in a nice, neat, tidy box as much as possible before you waive any conditions and go unconditional.
Yeah. That's because if you go firm and you remove all of your conditions, you may, and the deal falls apart, you may lose more than your deposit. Mm-hmm. The seller can sue you.
Yeah.
Because you are contractually obligated to buy that asset at this point.
Yeah.
And they can sue you if you walk away from the deal.
Yes.
So it's more than just your deposit. So don't just think, oh, I only have a $10K deposit in there, I'm okay with losing that, I'll just walk away from this even though I'm firm. They can go beyond that.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about walking away from a deal and you don't have all of your ducks in a row, don't.
Yeah. So make sure.
Or sorry, if you're feeling like, did I say that right?
No, I don't think you did. No, I don't.
If you're feeling like removing your conditions and you don't have all of your ducks in a row,
don't do it.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
The other thing, though, that I wanted to address, and this isn't giving you advice to walk away from a deal after you've removed conditions, but I've also seen people who have removed conditions, weren't prepared, didn't have things together when they were getting close to closing, and the deal essentially fell apart and they pushed it through closing anyway, and again got themselves into a lot of hot water, like are in bad situations. So if you're like, I feel like if you're finding yourself in that position, have a conversation with the seller and see if you can come to some sort of agreement. Like, don't be silent through that and just kind of struggle your way through it. If you have that conversation with them, like, maybe they will be okay with doing some sort of a mutual release of some kind because you've gotten yourself into a sticky situation. Or maybe they can help you with some sort of financing something, or they can get creative.
Yeah.
So once you've waived, after you've waived conditions, if you've gotten yourself into a sticky situation, don't just be like silent about it. I'm not saying just like walk away and hope for the best, but don't be silent about it. Like, have those conversations with the seller. If you're working with a realtor, have those conversations with your realtor, especially if you're in the larger multifamily space, because those tend to be more sophisticated investors and they might be able to help you out and get creative to make the deal make more sense for you when you do get to closing, or maybe you come to some kind of agreement that, you do end up killing the deal. But just don't be silent about it, because I've seen that happen as well. Like, don't be like, I don't know, embarrassed to talk about it, because again, you're going to get yourself into a lot more trouble on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So
don't let your ego or your pride get in the way.
Yeah.
Be transparent with what's going on, and you never know, you might be able to come out with a solution that, had you been silent, you would have never even been able to explore.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the biggest thing is make sure you do as much of your due diligence, all of your due diligence, not as much of it, all of it, as much as you can possibly think of doing before you ever waive a condition. And even if you've put money into a deal, don't be afraid to walk away from it, especially if you're conditional, because that's kind of a part of the game, right? Like, it's going to happen where you've invested something into the deal, and you do have to walk away from it. It's kind of a part of the multifamily game, and you have to be okay with that, because maybe a better deal is around the corner, and that's where you're going to end up making your big return instead of having to push that deal through and potentially have it not make any sense and to get yourself in trouble. You have to look at kind of your overall return, not necessarily your return on that deal.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
what happens when you do walk away from a deal? That's it? You just wash your hands of it?
No,
never come back?
No, yeah, I think even because we had talked about earlier, like walking away from the deal and leaving the door open, but you had said at one point.
I was just trying to segue into what do people do when they walk away from a deal?
Get a little sad, but then that's okay. You move on.
You need. Don't worry, I'll answer my own question.
I was like, I don't know what you want from me.
You need to
get a little sad and then you move on.
Just get sad and leave it. You need to have deal management. You need to be able to follow up with that deal. You need to follow up, I don't know, weekly, monthly, see where they're at. Make sure that you know what the MLS listing number is, and you have the contact information for the seller or the agent or whoever it is that you were working with, so that you can follow up and make a follow-up plan as well. Make sure that you're constantly touching base with them and saying, hey, I'm still back to my line. I'm still here. I'm just not there. Right?
Are you here?
Yeah, exactly.
Where are you? Even if you it can be as simple as a spreadsheet, right? And this doesn't have to be for deals that you've walked away from. Maybe you've put in an offer and the offer, they didn't accept it, and you're still interested in it. And you think that maybe if you call back in a month, maybe you can go back to the table and resubmit an offer. Keep it in a tracker of some kind. And that can be as simple as a spreadsheet that just says contacted this day, put an offer in for this month, follow up this time. So whether it's a CRM,
a month,
whether it's
Monday.com or an Asana or something. Excel is easy. Yeah, whatever you want to do, just have some sort of a system so that you're able to keep track of all the deals that you're working on, even the ones that you've underwritten, right? Just because the numbers don't work today doesn't mean they won't work tomorrow. Go back and take a look at it. If it's still for sale, have another look at it.
Yeah. And you'd be
this is all deal flow.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. We know a lot of people that they've gone back to that seller a month later, or that seller has gone back to them because they left the door open. They ended up making the deal, and like I said earlier, they ended up being that buyer. But you just have to make sure that you are. I think that's where being honest and being upfront is really important. That was a lot of.
Who just reacted?
Just 10 times. It was exciting.
Somebody's on mobile. Somebody just tapped.
But that's where being honest, being upfront, and just letting them know that I like this deal. I do want to be your buyer, but it's just this doesn't work for me at this time. So be honest, keep that door open, keep that relationship solid. And maybe if it's not that deal, maybe it's something else that's going to fit you better that they have in the future.
Yep.
Right?
Sellers typically don't just have the one building, and agents don't just have the one deal or asset to sell.
Yeah. And be understanding, right? Like we said earlier, they're investors too. They want the best return possible on their property. And don't tell them you're crazy.
You're numbers, out to lunch.
Yeah, your numbers suck. You're not your underwriting doesn't make any sense. That's why I hate what you're doing, so I'm walking away. That's if you want to approach it that way, they'll probably won't come back to you.
Yeah, but it's a good way to burn bridges.
Yeah, yeah. But if you're understanding and you're I get it. I'd want the best return possible too.
Yeah.
Then you're keeping that door open and showing them that you're on the same page, just not on the same page.
Yeah. And if you're willing to walk away from a deal, I think that says a lot about you and puts you in a really good position, puts you as a sophisticated investor in the seller's eyes, that you're not just going to get emotionally attached.
Yeah.
Like somebody would buying their forever home.
Yeah. Yeah. So be cautious. Especially I see this a lot when as far as the emotions go, I see this a lot when it's somebody's like first deal. This is kind of off topic a little bit, but don't just like watch what people are doing on Facebook. Like if you're just like I just want that first deal and I just want to push it through and you have a deal under contract and you're like I just want to close on something because everybody else on Facebook is. I don't care if the numbers don't make sense. I just want to do something because everybody on social media is doing it. Uh, Remember that social media, there's a lot of people who are only going to show the really good
I'd
stuff.
say the majority of people only show the good stuff.
Yeah. And you're not going to see a lot of the like negative stuff. You're also not going to see the deals people aren't doing, right? So if you're seeing a bunch of people doing deals, yeah, okay, maybe they've closed on something, but there are also a bunch of people who, are in the same boat as you, who are looking for that first deal or, are maybe working hard to find that next deal. It's not that everybody is closing deals and you aren't. So just, don't let that get to you. I see that a lot and people just want to get through their first deal and like own it because everybody on Facebook is closing on deals.
Also, not everything you see on Facebook somebody's actually closed on. If they did a walkthrough, it doesn't necessarily mean that they closed on that deal.
It also doesn't mean it was a good deal.
That's right.
So just don't let it get to you. If you've been well educated, if you have, so especially if you have good guidance, if you have a good coach or mentor that's guiding you, you've educated yourself, you've increased your level of sophistication, just worry about what you're doing and worry about getting like a good, solid, numbers make sense deal. Don't worry about just like getting something for the sake of getting something because that's what everybody else is doing. Because that's going to get you in trouble too. So be okay to walk away with it and be okay to walk away from it even if you've posted it on social media that you have under contract.
Yeah, you're not obligated to close on it just because you posted it on social media.
Yeah. Especially if you do like an education piece on why you walked away from it.
That can be really powerful. People love to see that as well.
Yeah, like if you have someone who, like if you're looking for like partnerships or something like that, people want to see that you're doing proper due diligence and that you're properly looking at numbers and that if something doesn't make sense, you're going to know and you're going to walk away from it. That's actually more powerful than like pushing that through and closing the deal, is to show that like you walked away for a reason and this is why. So
yeah,
don't worry. If you said you had under contract, it's fine. It's fine that you walk away from it. It's not like people are going to go, oh, they didn't close on it. The horror.
How embarrassing.
How embarrassing. No, if anything, that's more or just as powerful as closing on a deal.
To be willing to walk away is definitely more powerful.
Yeah. And it puts you in a more sophisticated position as an investor.
Yeah.
So
be willing to walk away if the deal doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And if you think you're getting too emotionally involved, have someone else look at it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Try to get you, because sometimes like even I've had that, and I've shown Jeff is very like.
I'm like, okay, but this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, you're right. Okay, yeah, you're right.
Sugar.
Hi, Sugar.
Welcome,
and Evgeny. I don't think we said hi to Evgeny.
Hi,
I just
Evgeny.
laughed at your LOL.
Yeah. I didn't know how to respond to it other than laughing as well. So we were there back in May. We were exhausted physically and mentally from walkthroughs, getting things under contract, and it falling through because it didn't meet our due diligence standards. I had to just take a second to see what DD meant. We held out until we knew for sure we had something amazing. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Good for you. That's the power. And I'm sure you have a coach in your corner. So that's somebody that's going to be able to help you through that as well, especially when you're physically, mentally exhausted, you're invested in these deals and emotionally attached probably at that point too.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you're able to walk away and wait for something that is going to be a good deal.
Yeah. And especially like I want to like touch on the fact that you said you were exhausted physically and mentally from doing walkthroughs. even just that, like, kind of that exhaustion will push some people sometimes to get anything.
Mm.
Right? Like we've walked through so many properties. We just like, let's just do this one because I'm tired. I just want one. And again, like, go back to the fact that every single one that has fallen through, every single one that you've walked through that didn't work, you're learning something. You're going through a process. It's going to make the next one easier. Every deal is different. So, even if you've walked through a bunch, had a bunch under contract, you're going to learn something from it.
Yep.
And if anything, you're going to learn what you don't want out of a deal. So it can be exhausting. Like I said, when Jeff asked me, what do you do if you let a deal down? You get a little sad, and that's okay, right? You can get a little sad if a deal doesn't work. You're not necessarily sad because you didn't close on it, but you're sad because you're exhausted. It is a lot of work to go through due diligence on a property.
But ask yourself what you've learned.
Yeah.
Like, what did you learn from this? And it could be something about the underwriting. It could be something about what you don't want.
Yeah.
It could be something about what you do want.
Yeah.
Maybe that building didn't have it.
Yeah. And be proud of yourself for pushing through it. Like, there's a lot to be said about the fact that you are still doing the walkthroughs, you're still doing the underwriting. I know it can be exhausting, but the discipline piece is really important in this world.
Mm-hmm.
So you be proud of yourself for keeping that discipline to not just continue to do the walkthroughs, but to still walk away from them. I think there's a lot to be proud of in that piece. So you almost have to do like the glass half empty, glass half full situation, just kind of reevaluate how you're thinking and, try to see what can I be proud of in this? What did I learn? No matter what, you can be proud of the fact that you walked away from something that wasn't going to work for you. And yeah, you kind of, if you're a little sad about it, be sad, but then pick yourself up and keep going, because don't let yourself be sad for too long.
Yeah. Well, and being physically and mentally exhausted from doing walkthroughs and deals falling apart and all this stuff, that can have two directions, really, right? One is, you mentioned it already, you could just say, forget it, I'm just going to close on something. I don't care what it is. I just want to get a deal done. The other direction is you just stop doing it. You just stop doing everything. You just get sick of it. You don't do the walkthroughs anymore. You don't do anything anymore. And you walk away from what you're trying to accomplish altogether. Neither of those are good. So yeah. if you're able to kind of continue to push through and walk away from these deals, but still get up and do it again, then that's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's okay to step away from it for a little bit too. If you are feeling like that mentally and physically.
I just mean like giving up.
No, I know. I know. I'm not saying like you can never take a break, right? Like, I know that's not what you were saying, but I think it's also okay to, if you do need to step back for a little while and say, okay, I'll take a little bit of me time. We'll reevaluate. Let's look at what we've learned in the last little while, and then just like get back out there and keep doing it. I mean, I know that from competitive sports growing up, like the number of times I fell on jumps, I've fallen 100%. I've fallen on more jumps than I've landed, for sure. I'm a figure skater, that's a weird reference if you don't know. But I've fallen on a lot more jumps than I've ever landed in my life, because that's how you learn, that's how you grow. But you have to have the discipline to keep getting up. Doesn't matter how bruised your butt is or how bruised your knees are, or like how bruised, I don't know what else is bruised. But you just have to get up and keep going. And as soon as you don't get up, the likelihood is the one that was going to work is like there,
right around the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
As she's sharing right now. So Christian can attest to this. Is Christian your coach or partner? We were planning to take the summer off, and then bam, our Welland project came along.
Yeah. And it's that picture. I've seen it a couple of times, and it's been like depicted in.
It's a cat that's hanging from a tree and it says, "Just hang in there." That one.
No.
Oh, it's a good one.
Pets, there's also that. I didn't know Christian was your coach. He's lovely.
He's all right.
Jeff had a good time with Christian this weekend.
He was my date to the gala.
He was, yeah. They were really cute. No, it's that picture of like the guy's like tunneling and he's looking for like gold or something, and he's tunneling and he's made this like big long tunnel, but then he stops and there's like this small piece that was left, and that's where the gold or the treasure or whatever it is,
Because
that's where it was.
you just gave up and didn't want to continue.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's that like keep pushing, because it's probably just around the corner, but you just need to keep going. And like real estate's going to test you. It will. It's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. So to find a really good, sophisticated deal, you got to keep working at it.
Yeah.
It's like a competitive sport. You just got to keep going.
Oh, Lisa, thank you. I can't imagine my Tuesdays without you. I love Jeff's hopium expression. I'll say thank you.
That was stolen.
But I did borrow that from our mentor, Alfonso.
Yeah.
That's not mine.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Alfonso.
Yeah, if you're hoping that a deal is going to go well, or you're hoping that the deal's going to go, or the asset's going to go up in value, you're smoking the hopium.
Yeah, and it's true. So with sugar, I know like the deal that they ended up finding is really incredible. But like they said, they had to push through. I know you guys had to push through a lot to find it, but the deal that you guys ended up finding is really incredible. And if you
I have a question actually, Sugar. Would you say that you found that Welland project, or did you create it? Did you create this deal, or was it just a deal from the beginning and you found it? Like, how would you describe it?
Jeff's gonna answer for you because he.
No, I'm not. It just plays into what I like to always say. So that's why I'm curious.
Yeah, we have the advantage of knowing what Sugar's deal is. So, we know it was created. So and that I'm going to assume that had a lot to do with, probably some of the deals that fell through is my guess. Some of the deals that you walked, some of the deals that fell through. My assumption is that you probably learned quite a bit through that process. You also have a very sophisticated level of education.
Mm-hmm. You have many tools in your tool belt, as we often say.
And it allowed you to create something that is a really incredible deal.
Yeah. Well, and this is another t-shirt, right? The best deals are never found, they're created.
Write that one down. We'll have
Connor, get on it.
Connor's probably not even here. Shoot.
I'm going to tag him in this one. I got to go and watch it.
No, but that's exactly, and Sugar, I'm glad that you added that, because like, I know you guys worked on getting to where you are for a while, and it ended up with, I think, probably a more incredible deal than you guys could have imagined, because I know that's happened to us as well, that we had deals fall through, we worked on them for a long time, and then the deal that we ended up moving forward with and closing on, it's actually becoming a better deal by the week after closing. So it was a great deal to begin with, and it just keeps getting better. So but that's just it, right? Pushing through those
more to come
deals.
on that.
Yeah.
We'll update you soon.
But just pushing through those properties and pushing through the disappointment, not being afraid to continue to walk away until you find the right one. So it just keeps getting sexier.
It does.
Yeah. All right.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I think we've kind of like.
I was ready to close this off until Sugar shared her experience, actually. So,
yeah, but I think it was a good, a very good example of exactly what we were talking about. So thank you, Sugar, for sharing that, because it depicted very well what we were talking about. Okay, so that's it. If you have any questions about our talk today, no, don't say sorry. It was perfect.
Yeah,
no, your example
it was great. We were out of stuff to say until you came in with that. So that allowed us to continue on a little bit longer.
Yeah, give us a good example.
A real world example, right?
Yeah. So if you have any questions about what we talked about today, please reach out. If you want to know more about from an education or mentorship or that kind of perspective, please reach out, because it will make these types of situations a lot easier. The more educated you are, the better support system you have. It's going to make walking away from these deals that, start to not make sense a lot easier, because you're going to have people that you're surrounded with that have been there, that have done that, and can, kind of look at your deal and say that that gut feeling that you have right now, you need to listen to it because you're letting your emotions cover that like gut feeling that you have.
And if you think this would help anybody that you know, please share it.
Yeah.
You can share it right from Facebook if you're watching it there, or you can share it on YouTube.
Yeah.
It'll be there to watch afterwards as well.
Yeah, this is a really important topic, and this might save somebody from a lot of headache and a lot of financial issue in the future. So, yeah, feel free to share it with anybody that maybe is struggling with something like this right now. So, but otherwise, we will be back next week. We're getting close to the holidays, but we should still be okay.
We'll be here next week.
It'll be the day before my birthday next week.
Heyo.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a birthday hat for you.
No, absolutely not. So again, we're here on Tuesdays at 12:30 Eastern on Facebook and also on YouTube. If you miss it, it will be posted on YouTube. If you're ever interested in hearing about a certain topic, or maybe you want to join us on these power lunches, if you have a topic you want to talk about, because we are definitely not experts in everything. I don't know if we're experts in, I don't like being, I don't know. Anyways, if there's something you want to talk about on the power lunches, reach out. We can figure out a time that makes sense. And otherwise, we will see you next time.
Everybody, thanks for your support.